The war in Ukraine is already shaping up to be a hot issue of debate in the upcoming presidential campaign. Top Republican contenders Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis, and even Vivek Ramaswamy question unlimited U.S. support for the war. A recent CBS YouGov poll shows 56% of Republicans agree the United States should provide Ukraine with less assistance. Only 15% of Democrats share that view. Well, joining us is former Virginia governor, past U.S. ambassador to the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, Jim Gilmore. Governor Gilmore, it's good and a pleasure to talk with you again. It's been a long time. So traditionally, Democrats would be the ones opposing more money for war. The Republicans would be the ones favoring it. Things have flipped a bit. So what do you make of this? Why the divide within the GOP?
I think there's not enough public discussion of the vital importance of this support of the Ukrainian government against this Russian aggression. There's just too much coverage right now from dissonant voices that are saying, frankly, not very good things, that are pushing this isolationist type of idea. When they say we ought to save the money, when we ought to send it to the southern border, that there's corruption, that's catnip to conservative ears. But the truth is that all of that's wrong. This is a danger to the United States of America if this isolationist idea takes shape and captures the majority of the Republican Party. It's not conservative. It serves the interests of the Russians, and it endangers the interest and safety and security of the United States of America.
Well, it definitely seems like they're not letting up at all. Putin is going full steam ahead. And I hear a lot of Americans say they're not necessarily opposed to spending more, but they know there's a lot of corruption in Ukraine. They want an accountability for the money and the weapons sent. So how do you respond to that?
Well, I'm in favor of accountability. A friend of mine has suggested a special inspector general, which I think is a good idea. There's nothing wrong with that. If nothing else, just to allay the concerns and fears of the American people and people in the Republican Party. That's okay with me. But to exaggerate this, or recognize right now that Zelensky is the one who's actually trying to combat the corruption. And he's doing it because he can't get into the European Union if his country is known to be corrupt. So he's working to actually clean a lot of that out right now. But look, the principal problem that we're facing is that we just don't have a good enough voice in the United States on this issue. It is the president of the United States who has the duty and the obligation to make the case. And for some reason, he's just not doing it. So as a result, he's partially, if not fully, to blame for this very counterproductive, negative rise of isolationism in and around the Republican Party. It's the president who has the bully pulpit. I mean, I can speak all day, and I am. I'm doing it right now. But I don't have the national platform that the president does. It's his duty, and all he does right now is be silent on this issue. Every now and then he announces more money, but all that does is just creates the anxiety from the isolationists. This is the president's duty to speak out on this right now and explain to the American people why this support for Ukraine is vital to the safety and security of the United States.
Well, he did just send Secretary of State Antony Blinken there to Ukraine. He met with Zelensky. Zelensky also, I understand, fired a bunch of corrupt recruiters, military recruiters. So your thoughts on that?
Well, that's right. First of all, Secretary of State going over there and making a statement is a positive thing to do, but it doesn't carry the weight of the President of the United States. You can see that. Blinken has been noted, but it's just been noted. If the president came out and said, look, this is our policy, this is why we're doing it, it's why it's vital to the safety and security of the United States of America, then I think you would at least be able to get back in the game. And I'm going to continue to do it on the Republican side because based on my experience as former United States ambassador, I know the score on this, and I know how dangerous this isolationist rise is to the U.S.
Well, let's talk about that because you are the former ambassador, and many people say the United States is covering most of the cost for helping Ukraine. They want to see those countries on Russia's doorstep shoulder more of the burden. So what's the truth about Europe's contribution?
The truth is the Europeans are being dramatically supportive of this effort. They're sending tanks. They're actually the ones that are going to send the first airplanes. They're sending money. They're taking care of the refugees. The Polish country is particularly doing that. But these Eastern European countries that I know about, well, Western Europeans also, they get the deal. They know what's going on because Russia is right there on their doorstep. So let me make this point real clear. If the Russians succeed in conquering Ukraine by force, they will begin to be a major presence, not just in Eastern Europe, but in all of Europe. And if Europe is somehow neutralized out of fear of the Russians, that is an existential danger to the United States. And furthermore, if this keeps on going this way, the isolationists pull us out and the conquest of Ukraine succeeds by the Russians, it influences what goes on in the Pacific. And the danger will increase on Taiwan. And you never know, at that point, we may very well be in a world war.
Well, let me ask you this then. This war has been going on for more than a year and a half now. So why is no one talking peace?
Because the conquest and fascist attack by Putin is in his hands. He's the one who's the aggressor, not us. He's the one that's hoping that we'll negotiate and allow him to keep some of his conquests so he can reload and go later. He's the one that's committing the atrocities, the rapes, the murders, and everything that's going on right now, which sets a whole new world standard. He's the one that's doing those things. It is in the natural interest or natural instinct of the United States to want to all get along and do a compromise. He knows that. And that's why he's actually playing on the minds of the American people. And he's getting help from these isolationists that are in and around my Republican Party. It's not acceptable, it's dangerous, and it shouldn't be permitted.
And he knows that the U.S. eventually grows tired and then pulls out. Okay, former U.S. ambassador to the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, Governor Jim Gilmore. Thank you so much for sharing your time and insights. We appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity.